He told the whole room he barely knew my name, and every person in that hall believed him. I believed him too, for one terrible moment. Then I remembered the 7 letters he had written to me, the garden meetings he had asked for, the evening he sat beside me for 2 full hours and spoke to me like I was the only person in all of Vienna who made sense to him. 6 weeks. That was how long Duke Louis von Aldenberg had been seeking me out. Quietly, carefully, away from every eye that mattered in this city. And on that night, with his fiancée standing not 10 feet away and the court watching his every move, he looked me in the face and said he barely knew my name. Now, before you decide what kind of man that makes him, I need you to hear the full story. Because what Louis did in that room was only half of it. What he did afterwards, that is the part nobody in Vienna ever expected. A man that powerful, already engaged, everything to lose. Why would he walk away from all of it? For a woman the whole court had decided was nobody. Stay with me, because the answer will surprise you. To understand why any of this matters, you need to know what Vienna was in 1810. This was not simply a city. It was the center of the Habsburg Empire, one of the most powerful royal systems in all of Europe. And inside that empire, your title was everything. Your rank told people whether to bow to you, ignore you, or fear you. There was no middle ground. Duke Louis von Aldenberg held the rank of Herzog. In the Habsburg Empire, the title of Herzog was not just a name. It was authority made real. When a Herzog entered a room, members of the imperial parliament rose to their feet. His word carried legal weight across his own territories. The people who lived and worked on his estate answered to him before they answered to any court in the land. This was the world Louis was born into, and it was a world he had never questioned. Louis was 29, engaged to Lady Cornelia Brandt for 5 years. Not because he loved her, because the match made sense on paper. Her family had money. His family had rank. He had agreed to this at 24 and had not thought twice about it since. A person who has never questioned a major life decision, not once, not even privately, is usually someone who buried their own feelings so deep that they forgot the feelings were ever there. The cold, untouchable nobleman is one of the most popular romance drama tropes in the world. But in 1810 Vienna, this was not fiction. It was survival. Sentiment was seen as weakness. Louis had not chosen to become this way. He had been shaped by a world that rewarded it. Now, Lady Amelia Voss, the second daughter of a respected Latin scholar, not poor, not disgraced, simply ordinary. And in Habsburg aristocracy, ordinary was the same as invisible. In 1810 Vienna, the educated class followed a philosophy called Bildung, the moral and intellectual development of a person through learning. But Bildung was mostly expected of men, a woman who was too sharp, too willing to hold a firm opinion. In the language of the ton, that made her difficult. Difficult meant unmarriageable. Amelia knew this. She had made peace with it. She chose to be invisible, not from shame, but because being seen by the wrong people cost more than it was worth. Then she met Louis, not on purpose. A winter gathering at the Hofburg Palace. Amelia near the far window, watching the snow fall outside. Not watching Louis, not watching anyone. That was the thing that stopped him. You are not enjoying the gathering. I find that snow is better company than most people at these events, Your Grace. He was not used to honest answers. They spoke for 10 minutes. She did not try to impress him. When the conversation ended, she gave a small nod and walked away. Louis stood there for a moment after she left. Something about that brief, plain conversation had stayed with him in a way the rest of the evening had not. He told himself it was nothing. He was wrong. He saw her again 3 days later. Not by chance this time. He had made a point of attending a reading at the Imperial Library, an event he had never once shown interest in before. Amelia was there with her father. Louis did not approach her directly. He simply found himself near enough to hear her speak. She was disagreeing with a professor twice her age. Calmly, precisely, with evidence. The professor looked startled. Louis looked interested. After that, the meetings were no longer accidental. Over the next 6 weeks, Louis found reasons to be where Amelia was. A garden gathering here, a private concert there, always on the edge of a room, always brief, always quiet enough that no one would think to remark on it. When a person starts engineering reasons to be near someone while telling themselves it is harmless, that is not harmless. That is the beginning of something they are not ready to name yet. The conversations went deeper than either of them planned. Louis discovered that Amelia read in 4 languages. Not because someone required her to, because she was genuinely curious about the world. She had opinions on philosophy, on history, on the way power moved through societies. And she stated those opinions without apology. He had never spoken to anyone like her. His own circle spoke to gain advantage. Every word was a move in a longer game. Amelia simply said what she thought was true. It was disarming. In Ottoman culture, and the Ottoman Empire shared a long border with Austria throughout this period. There was a concept called mahabbat. The word does not translate easily into English, but the closest meaning is a deep, soul-level conversation between 2 people. Not small talk, not debate, something closer to being truly known by another person. The Ottomans believed that mahabbat formed a bond stronger than any written contract. Louis and Amelia were building exactly this. Neither of them had a word for it. Amelia, for her part, saw something in Louis that the court had never bothered to look for. Beneath the rank and the practiced indifference, a man who had spent his entire life doing what was required of him. Every choice designed to meet someone else's expectation. She asked him once what he had wanted to do with his life before duty decided for him. He was silent for a long time. "I cannot recall being asked that before," he said. She did not push. She simply let the silence sit there. Then the warning arrived. Lady Cornelia had noticed. She sent word to her father. Baron Brandt arrived at the von Aldenberg estate and spoke quietly across the study table. "Rumor has reached me, Your Grace, that you have been keeping the company of a professor's daughter. I trust this is nothing of consequence." Louis met his eyes. "She is an acquaintance. Nothing more." He said it without hesitation, without flinching, perfectly controlled. Louis denied Amelia immediately and completely to protect his own position. A person who will not acknowledge you the moment it costs them something is showing you where you stand. That is not a difficult situation. That is a clear answer. What followed for Amelia is something historians call social ostracism by omission. No public accusation, no scandal, no confrontation. She was simply quietly removed from rooms. Invitations stopped. Doors that had been open began to close. This practice was a deliberate tool of aristocratic society, and it did not disappear with the 19th century. It still happens today in workplaces, in social circles, in families. Amelia noticed. The invitations slowed. Small things, easy to explain away individually. But together they told a clear story. She did not know she had been denied. What she knew was this: something had shifted. And whatever it was, it had been decided without her. She began to think very carefully about what she was going to do next. Amelia was not the kind of person who waited to be told what was happening. She had watched the doors close one by one. She had counted the invitations that stopped arriving. She had noticed the small, careful silences that replaced conversations that used to come easily. She did not have proof. She did not need it. She had been reading people her whole life the same way she read texts. Closely, patiently, and without letting her own feelings get in the way of what was actually written on the page. She knew. And here is the part that matters most. She did not fall apart. For some time, her father had held a connection to a publishing house in Prague, one of the most respected translation firms in Central Europe. They had been asking whether Amelia might consider a contract position, translating rare Latin manuscripts. Serious, skilled work. She had never accepted. Vienna was her home. She accepted now, not because she was forced to, not because a crisis had pushed her out. She chose Prague because staying in Vienna was becoming a problem, not for her, but for Louis. And she had thought about that long enough to understand what it meant. In feudal Japanese court tradition, when a retainer's continued presence near their lord became a source of difficulty, not through wrongdoing, but simply through circumstance, the most devoted among them would quietly remove themselves, not in anger, but as an act of deliberate care. They understood that protecting someone sometimes means removing the very thing causing the complication, even when that thing is yourself. Amelia had never heard of this tradition, but she arrived at exactly the same place. She told her sister plainly, without drama. Her sister wept. Amelia held her hand and did not. She left one thing behind. On the table in her sister's parlor, a small book of Latin verse that Louis had once picked up during one of their conversations and turned over carefully in his hands, the way a person handles something they find quietly beautiful. On the inside cover, in her steady handwriting, she had written one line: "Some doors do not close because we were never meant to enter. They close because we cared too much about what was behind them." No name, no explanation, nothing else. Louis found out she was gone on a Wednesday morning. He heard it from his footman, who had heard it from a market trader near the Voss house. A carriage, before sunrise, luggage. He sat in his study for 3 hours. He did not send for anyone. He did not move. That evening, Louis attended his engagement dinner. He said every correct thing. He made every correct gesture. And the entire time he felt nothing. When you find yourself going through the motions of a life that no longer matches who you are, and you call it responsibility instead of asking why it feels this way, pay attention. That feeling is telling you something important. Researchers at Utrecht University studied people in high-duty social roles whose public responsibilities required them to perform a version of themselves that had little to do with who they actually were. They found this split produces a specific kind of grief, not over a loss you can point to, but over a version of yourself you were never allowed to become. Louis had been carrying this for years. Amelia leaving simply made it impossible to ignore. 3 months passed. Louis ended his engagement to Lady Cornelia, quietly, without scandal. It cost him money, political alliances, and the clean future he had designed at 24. He did it anyway. Then he wrote a letter to Prague. It was not long. It was not poetic. "I find I cannot continue in a direction that was chosen for me before I understood what I was choosing against. If you are in Prague by your own desire, I will not disturb that. But if you left Vienna for reasons that have since changed, I should like you to know that those reasons no longer exist." He folded it, sealed it, sent it, and then he waited. What Amelia did with that letter. That is what we need to talk about. Amelia received Louis's letter on a Thursday. She read it once. She set it down on her desk beside her work, and then she picked up her pen and carried on translating. She had 4 weeks left on her contract. Every page would be finished before she made any decision about anything else. That was simply who she was. There is an old Czech saying, "De chvíli stál osadil esi mimo." It means, he who stood still for a moment found himself outside. It is a warning about hesitating too long. But there is another way to read it. Sometimes standing still, finishing what you started, letting the world move around you until you are ready, is not weakness. It is the clearest sign of a person who knows their own mind. Amelia stood still, And when she moved with complete certainty. She returned to Vienna in the spring of 1811. Not for Louis, not running towards anything. She returned because her work in Prague was done and Vienna was her home. They met on a Thursday afternoon in the Volksgarten, a public garden open to all citizens regardless of rank or title. Not a palace, not an estate, shared ground. Louis was already there when she arrived. He rose when he saw her, and for the first time in the 2 years she had known him, he looked like a man with no prepared answer waiting. "You came back," he said. "I finished my work," she replied. A pause. Vienna moved around them. Carriages on the cobblestones, children near the fountain. The ordinary sound of a city with no idea anything important was happening here. "I owe you an honest conversation," he said. "You owe me nothing," she said. "You made choices within the world you were given." "So did I." He looked at her for a long moment. "Then, if I may, I would like to make a new set of choices, beginning with asking whether you would allow me to call upon you properly." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Bring a better book than last time." That was all. No grand declaration. No dramatic scene. Just a small door, opened carefully, by two people who had both earned the right to walk through it slowly. Some things begin with noise. The real ones begin like this. Before we go, this story is not just about Louis and Amelia. It is about choices, the ones we make for ourselves, and the ones we allow other people to make for us without saying a word. So let us take 5 things from this story that you can actually use. Sacrifice made from strength looks completely different from running away in pain. Amelia did not leave Vienna because she was broken. She left because she understood the situation clearly and chose to act on that understanding. That is not defeat. That is power. Real sacrifice is always a choice, never a collapse. Duty and fear feel exactly the same from the inside. Louis spent years calling his choices duty. The moment he looked honestly at them, he saw they were fear. Ask yourself this. The decisions you call duty, are they truly your values, or are they things you are too afraid to question? Silence, used with dignity, is more powerful than any argument. Amelia never sent an angry letter. She never demanded an explanation. She simply acted, cleanly, quietly, and on her own terms. The ones who move quietly and decisively are the ones worth watching. Reputation is a cage. In 1810 Vienna, every decision Louis made was shaped by what the ton would think. Today, that same cage exists. It just lives in comment sections and the fear of what people will say. The bars are the same. Only the material has changed. Louis only became free the day he decided the cage was not worth the cost of staying inside it. You do not need someone else to confirm your worth. Amelia knew who she was long before Louis noticed her. She did not become valuable because a powerful man paid her attention. She was already valuable. Never let someone else's failure to see you make you doubt what you already know about yourself. The court of Vienna never fully understood what changed in Duke Louis von Aldenberg. They saw the broken engagement. They noted the canceled alliances. They whispered for months. Not one of them ever guessed the truth, that the most powerful man in Habsburg society had been changed. Not by war, not by politics, not by scandal, but by a quiet woman near a window watching snow fall, who had simply told him the truth and then walked away. She had not tried to change him. She had simply been herself. And that was enough. If this story stayed with you, that is not an accident. We tell stories like this every week. Stories set in real history, from real places, built around real human truths. Stories that are not just entertainment. They are mirrors. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss one. And if someone in your life needs to hear a story like this today, share it with them. We will see you in the next one. In the early 1800s, Vienna was one of the most rigid social systems in the world. The Habsburg court controlled everything. who married whom, who rose in society, and who was quietly pushed to the edges. Women with education and no title had almost no power. Their value was measured entirely by the family they came from and the husband they secured. History records real women like Amelia, Caroline Pichler, a Viennese writer and intellectual born in 1769, was celebrated privately in salons but dismissed publicly because she was a woman with opinions in a world that did not know what to do with that. And men like Louis existed too. The Habsburg system produced generations of noblemen who married for alliance, performed duty faithfully, and privately carried the weight of lives they never chose. The Congress of Vienna in 1814 and 1815, where European powers gathered to redraw the world after Napoleon, was built entirely on exactly these kinds of arranged alliances. Entire futures traded like property. This story was written to say what those real people could not say out loud. Some of them deserved better. Most of them never got it. This is for them.